Welcome to another episode of the Growth Focus podcast, where we bring together tech leaders from all across the globe to share their time, their insights and expertise with us so that we can grow our businesses. Now, my name is Gary Lafferty, your host and founder and CEO of the Growth Focus Partnerships, where we take tech leaders and turn them into authorities within their field so that their conversations turn into clients and their insights turn into pipelines. Today, we're going to be talking about what does it take to break through some barriers, some glass ceilings, some mental flaws that enable us to get a new foundation in order to grow. We're also going to be talking about what mindset shifts do we have to take in order to reach that next level of income and what certain founders tend to miss when it comes to growing their company. So without further ado, let's bring on this episode's guest. Rick, it's an extreme honor and pleasure to have you with us today. Why don't you start off by telling us who you are and what is it that you do?
Hey, I'm Rick Schott. I'm a software executive. I've just been in the startup space probably, I guess, since Amazon was selling books. Kind of stayed in that space. Mostly worked with SaaS software companies my whole career. Currently working with 2 or 3 startups right now. And that's what I enjoy. So
Brilliant. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't you take us back a little bit and why don't you share with us what originally drew you into the world of SaaS and early stage startups?
well, I mean, it was the dot-com boom when I was getting into, when I was graduating college, and I went to school of business. I thought what I was going to do. Had to take some classes that were, technical related. And I found myself that I liked it a lot. So I ended up getting an internship job that was, related to software. And then I just ended up graduating. I was too far in to business. I went ahead and finished that and graduated. I just kind of self-taught web programming and stuff like that. And I jumped right in from then on. I never did anything different. So the business probably came in hand, but
Yeah. I mean, what a journey, as you said, going right back to the dot-com days. In effect, you've seen from one parameter to another, from dot-com days to AI-driven platforms today. That being said, then, what are some sort of key lessons that you've learned from that journey within the industry?
I mean, I guess working with a lot of different SaaS companies, what I've seen is the trajectory and path of growth has all been very similar. Everybody seems to have the same type of problems at the same type of stages. So, when you see those patterns and you start, with new companies, you try to avoid them. But there's, a lot of similarities. Software, how we build it's changed, but, foundationally, the problems haven't changed. People, customers, and scaling, the same problems still exist.
Yeah, and that's one of the key things, isn't it? And this is what you and I have been talking about before is, some of the big major problems, it doesn't matter what you are, whether you're a SaaS, whether you're a VAR, whether you're a founder, the problems are the same when it comes to building a business, and then there's certain plateaus that certain founders tend to get to, if they're hitting that sort of first class ceiling, $1 million, $2 million, they probably got there on pure grit, maybe their network and their referral basis. But once they get to this 1 million ceiling, 2 million ceiling, they kind of run out of steam. For founders listening who might be at this, let's say, 1 million a year ARR and hitting kind of this, I don't know, plateau glass ceiling, what challenges have you faced that you could share some insights with them?
Well, one thing I've seen, at least from a pattern standpoint, is usually at that level, you have a few people doing a lot of different roles. If you're the founder or CEO that, it's your baby, you are probably doing way too much. You haven't given up control of certain things. So with that comes, you need to be hiring really good people for those key roles that you have to get your day-to-day hands off of. That's one of the first steps I see that founders have a hard time with, because it's theirs. It's their baby. They grew it.
Yeah.
Like you said, if they didn't take funding, they probably, worked really hard to get to this point. But they're probably stuck because, they're in the way.
Yeah. When do you think they'll know? And I see this every day when I'm talking to people within the industry. Like you said, it's their baby. They've worked tremendously hard to get to this particular level, especially if they're bootstrapped. And it's kind of like, well, no one can do this the way I do it, because it is my story, my mission. When do you think it's the right time for founders to start looking at separating those roles and bringing on a team? And how will they recognize it's the right time?
Well, I mean, when your numbers plateau, that's a really good indicator. that, I mean,
Yeah,
if you,
but you don't want to try to get there before then, obviously, right?
yeah, I mean, if you're still growing, then don't change what you're doing. But,
Mm-mm.
obviously the numbers start plateauing. You're seeing more churn, with the same effort. That's a pretty good indicator to me that, what's going on? What are we missing? Our customers upset? Like somebody's dropping a ball somewhere in your organization, and you got to figure out what that is pretty quickly too. Because
Yeah,
when
because you
you're
can go
done,
into reverse very, very quickly, can't you? From all
yes,
that growth you had, it's not just hitting the plateau. You hit that plateau, hit your head a few times, and then you start going into reverse because you can't then see the wood from the trees and where the problems are. And as you quite rightly said, who's dropped the ball? And it's predominantly you. But you're trying to
yeah,
juggle too many things, right?
exactly, exactly. The other thing I've seen too, is you you've worked so hard to get to where you are, and then the ball's dropping. You're not paying attention to all these things. You're too busy to even hire. So like, do you need HR at this point? Do you need, like, you have to figure those things out really quick and hire quick, and they have to be quality hires, which is the other kind of downside I see is like you can't just hire anybody that early. They have to be really good. But founders don't like to spend a lot of money early. Um,
Yeah.
but that's the time when you do it.
I think that's a really good point there. Like you said, they get to a point where they are so busy. They seem to be banging their head against the wall every single morning. They get out of bed, they put their feet on the floor and go, right, we're going to do this again. It becomes frustrating, very, very frustrating. And they just become over busy being too busy. And like you said, they're too busy to hire. What kind of steps would you say that would be sort of advisable for them when it comes to taking their first hires on?
Reaching out to your network, um, you know, that's first step. One, you need to have a good network of other people that have gone through this. Um, even sometimes I'd say reaching out to an advisor and just having an advisor that's been through it, that it maybe has a better network than you. If you don't, they can find people even if they're interim, because you just don't want to make a mistake that early on an expensive hire that's critical that may not be a good fit for your company and where you're at.
Yeah. And I think one of the key words you just said there was even if it's interim, right? Because
Uh-huh.
there is this tendency to think, well, once I start hiring, they're going to be with us. It's got to be the right person. It's going to be long term. I don't want to then share everything with them for them to go. But there's a power in the interim, isn't there?
Oh yeah, for sure. And it might cost you a lot, but it won't cost you as much as the long term hire that wasn't right and all the mistakes they might make. So you really have to weigh that. Um, Another thing I've seen at this stage, you were just talking about that they need to be looking for, or patterns I've seen is, especially with SaaS products for software, is usually a organically grown company that's gotten to, let's say, 1 million AR or whatever their little plateau is. They're doing everything the customer's asking, like,
Mm.
right? They're just whatever they can do to make the customer happy because they need those customers. But that, eventually won't scale. Eventually, you do have to have a good product vision. You have to have a good roadmap and a product person that's usually the founder. And then figuring out what you're going to do long term, a real strategy to move forward, because you can't just listen to everything each customer wants and just do that. It's, you'll be a custom software shop.
But we can understand why. Why they do that,
Oh,
can't
yeah.
It's either a cash, they just want the cash, or they want the client, or they just want to feel the fact that, yes, they are right and it's needed and it's a product or a service that is desired by the marketplace, but with all the little tweaks. But as you say, we see this every single time that when they're starting up, almost every single time, one client makes one tweak, and a little tweak per client doesn't seem to make that much of a difference. But once you've got a good bucket full of clients and now you're trying to bend over backwards for all of those, it's a lot of little tweaks to
It is.
your original thing.
It's impossible to maintain, right? You have to have your own vision of what your product is and what it's going to be. And again, like you said, if you want to grow and scale, you got to have a plan. What is the
So let's
trajectory?
talk about this plan. What does this vision look like? Because we're going to be talking about later on today about lead generation, marketing, sounding out, but getting your voice heard above all the noise out there. But with your experience, what advice would you give to bootstrap founders trying to grow? They haven't got external funding and they're just trying to push the company forward, but just keep, as we say, hitting this glass ceiling.
Well, one, you got to know what, assuming you're going to have competitors, most companies have a pretty good competitor. No one's really doing anything on their own. You got to know where you're going and not play catch up, right? So I call them leapfrog features. So like
Mm.
you got to know like what you're trying to do, what you want to do, and not just filling a sheet and saying, all right, they have this, and we have this, and they have this. And you know what I mean?
Mhm.
To some degree, you have to have that to compete, but you also have to have a vision of like, all right, what's going to make us first? What's going to make us better? And you have to plan and you have to really think through, what your product needs or doesn't have. Or maybe you're an industry expert and you've been thinking about what your customers need that no one's thinking about. And that's what I
Mhm.
call the leapfrog feature. It's like, well,
It's almost like thinking about, from what I understand from it, is that not just about thinking about the future of the product or the service, but thinking of the future of the business. What does the business look like
true.
down the road? How many clients, how many customers are you serving? What do you do? What does it look like then? What do the fulfillment looks like then? Kind of looking way into the future and then kind of reverse engineering that and say, okay, this is the plan we've got to take.
Yeah. I mean, you really have to understand how you're going to attain all these customers, keep them. What's your business going to look like, not only technically, but operationally, location wise? Are you going to be an international company or not? Are you serving the whole world or just the United States? Just, wherever you're based, because there's all types of um, legal and things that you have to deal with to prepare for that. Um,
Which is,
especially,
again, is another reason to make sure you've got a good team, make sure you've got a good board, no matter how big or small that board is.
yeah, you want to serve clients in Europe? Okay, well, there's rules around that, and you got to have a data center. That all kinds of things have to happen. You're gonna
Yeah,
deal with certain levels of customers. Do you have your compliances? You gotta be ahead of that if that's where you're going to know that all that has to happen because
absolutely.
it
Absolutely.
takes
Yeah.
more than you and your buddy that got you, a little bit down the road to do it.
Exactly. So what this is always saying is, what is that vision? What is the destination? And people say it's not, it's the journey. The journey is a good part of it, but you still have to have a North Star. You still need to know, and it can't be in front of your face anymore, and there'll be people listening and people watching this and they'll be going, I remember when $1 million or $2 million, that was the North Star. That was where I needed to get to. But now we're getting to that. What is your next step? And they can't see that next step because they're too, like we said earlier, too busy being busy to think, how can we break through and then look at the 5 million or look at the 10 million? It seems impossible to get to that stage.
Right, right, and then even like further down the road is like, are you even a qualified CEO for a level company that you're now at? And do you have enough vision to get out of the way of even then? Like there's all kinds of getting out of
Yeah.
the way with
Otherwise,
growth.
you just got yourself another job, as I say, haven't it? You just built
Uh,
yourself another job, and you're just not leading anymore. You're just working in it rather than leading it. So let's talk about the work that you do, Rick, and what excites you. You're currently involved with both Drip Jobs and Root Amazing. So, what excites you about those? Tell us a little bit about both those companies.
Well, one's a CRM for like the service-based industry. So it's just another SaaS company. What incites me is the growth. The stage of the company I came in, it was a friend of mine that got me involved. So that's fun, is working with people that you've worked with before. They're smart. Um, but right now, really, it's AI, like everything else. It's innovating with AI, which is where Randomize came from. We were working on a pretty interesting feature in Drip Jobs and realized this is not just a Drip Jobs feature. This is like anyone could use this functionality.
Mm.
So we immediately spun it off and, we're close to launching that right now. So, and that's all kind of AI based stuff.
Well,
So
let's talk about that because I like that you've mentioned Rhythmize uses AI in a meaningful way when we were talking before. How do you approach differentiation when everybody's shouting AI? Literally, you could be a one-man band to a big, massive enterprise. Even VCs are saying, as long as it's got AI, we'll be interested. So everyone's got to have this AI element to it. What approach is different to the way you guys do it at Rhythmize?
Um, well, one, we got a patent for the process on what we're doing, which is important. But I've said this probably to you and others: is if you're using AI for whatever it is business you're trying to do, and if that business can't function without the AI, then you don't have a business or a product. That's my take on it. So
Mhm.
could Randomize function if AI went down? Not as well, but it still has value. So that's
Mhm.
where I look at AI is in your company. You're seeing it every day right now with the main service providers with AI because it's changing so fast every day. But you're seeing the main providers like Anthropic and OpenAI and Google. They're cutting out the middlemen. So a lot of companies have spun up that are completely based on their technology, and they're just kind of a pass through. And they're like, well, we can provide that. Here's a new tool that's ours. You don't have to use theirs anymore. You can just use ours because it's our service they're using anyway. So that's where I look at like these tools are cool. They're innovating, and some of them are making money, a lot of money, and some are getting bought by the main companies, and that's awesome too. But I think we'll see fewer and fewer of those because it's moving so fast, and the main providers are able to go, okay, these are products we could put on top of our product.
Yeah.
And you can come
Yeah,
to
they're
the store.
almost swirling up a lot of
Yeah.
those little market space. So as quick as we see it grow and expand, almost at this exponential rate, there's you got the guys now who are just gobbling them up into the world, and then just making it just one huge entity.
Yep. Yeah. That's the path. I don't think that's going to change. I feel like the AI space, and I could be wrong, I don't know. It's kind of like cell phones were. And it's kind of like there's just going to be something you're using all the time. You don't think about it much anymore. It's not it's not going to be so competitive. You're just going to have some main providers, and everybody has it, and it'll
Yeah.
continue to innovate and drive everything. But it won't be kind of like Chat GPT or the buzz.
All the little individual providers and things
Yeah.
like
It's just
that.
kind of like it's just embedded in our everyday life, and it's just part of everything.
I think that's a very good analogy. The cell phones, we've all got them. They're within arm's reach, no matter what, for majority of the population of this planet, and we don't even think of it. I remember when we had cell phones when they first came out. It was the thing. It was like, oh, this is a phone. We make calls on it. This is what we do. But now it's just an extension of us. It's an extension of our knowledge base. It's an extension of our ability to do things. Opens garages, opens our cars, it starts the car. It books the tickets. It's everything. It's our boarding passes. It's everything now, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just something that's with you. You don't. I mean, you'd be more worried about leaving your phone than your wallet. Usually, it's like you can't really function without it in this day and age. And
Yes, yeah. So that's been very interesting to see. That's a very good take on where AI is going to be. So let's talk about Runamize. What problem does Runamize solve that you feel that most people still underestimate or get wrong?
The biggest problem we're trying to solve is route optimization. So most all companies have ways to book appointments like Calendly and scheduling and all that kind of stuff. But most of the time when companies do that, it's a request for an appointment. It has to get confirmed. It has to get approved. It has to someone has to at some point go, yeah, we can service whatever this is on this date, or yes, that works with our schedule. Our goal is to have the calendars integrated to be very smart with AI and to be able to find slots immediately in their schedules with the help of AI and routing and time, destinations, the locations, what types of appointments they are, who's going to, where the other people are going and coming from, all those kind of things. We're using AI to go, well, you know what? Here's some dates based off what you're in, all the parameters there could be, where you guaranteed spot right here if you want it, boom, right? So you don't have to go through the approval process. So the goal is to optimize work schedules, for the service you have, whatever it is. And, like you might have an opening tomorrow, right? That's open, but you're not going to be anywhere near where this is at. But let's say 2 days from now, or even 3 days, I got a guy that's going to be next door at this time.
Yeah.
This is a more optimized spot. And if time is not a problem, that's the one you want to fill.
Yeah. It
So
just
that's
makes it more efficient, isn't it?
more
And like you
efficient.
said, it would almost do it by half, because every time, for a majority of us who have to make appointments, or people want appointments with us, they've got to send us an invitation. We've got to check if it's the right thing. Will we be in the right place? Even though, like you say, even though there's a gap, that might be take up with travel time, or that might be a debrief time, or whatever the case may be. And just because there's a slot there doesn't necessarily mean
Right.
that's absolutely ideal or free for that particular meeting.
Exactly. You have the types of meetings it is. Do they run over? You have all types of things that are interesting, like with traffic patterns and stuff. So yes, A to B takes this long, but what time of day is A and B for this particular appointment? Well, historically, there's always this going on. So there's a lot of cool things to do with the data and with AI to help us, um, find the most optimized routes.
Yeah,
but
yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean,
that's
I use
cool.
to put that into place. How I used it, I actually used it yesterday, or a version of it yesterday, when I had to. I reverse engineered how long it would take me to get from here in Breckenridge down to Denver, down into Denver at a certain time. I think I had to be there by, I don't know, 11:30 in the morning or whatever. Using AI, Google's AI, what if if I had to be there at this time, what would the traffic be to get down? What would the typical traffic be? What time would I have to leave, etc.
Yeah.
So we're already using that type of AI anyway now. It's just had the integration into our more efficient working day.
Yeah. In your business and all the parameters you have, there's all types of configurations around how you run your business and your time slots and your people, and you might have salespeople, and you might have all kinds of things where it's this type of appointment, so this person's calendar matters, not this one, and all that kind of stuff. But that's kind of the goal is to
Gotcha.
utilize
Yeah.
AI to
Interesting
help us.
times. Really,
Yeah,
really interesting. So
it's fun.
what has worked with you when it's currently come to acquiring customers, acquiring that, the lead generation? What's working really well for you guys right now?
Well, at least excuse me, with Routimized, since we haven't launched, a
Yeah.
lot of our customers are going to come from existing drip jobs. That's going to
Mhm.
be like kind of out of the gate customers. But with drip jobs, everything's usually simple Facebook marketing, that kind of stuff. Just normal. We have an agency we work with who
Mhm.
helps us with all, with ads and where they get placed. But it's pretty much all digital, normal, like out of the box. Here's our, our set of ads we're running, and these are the
Mhm.
places they're going to be showing up at, and based off of our current customer demographics, that's who's going to see them. We've grown pretty organically, starting in the painting industry because our founder um, had a painting company, and that's what started it. Really, he started it with
Okay.
painting. He was a painter, had a need, started trying to fill that need himself, and that turned into.
So that's an interesting. What kind of founder-led marketing has he put into that, or you guys are continuing to use to stand above all the noise that's actually out there in the marketplace?
Well, being an expert in the space, what really helped him was a podcast. Being an
Mm.
expert in painting and being a voice that people trust because they've heard him speak and go to industry events and talk. That helps a lot. Puts a lot of validity behind, a lot of integrity as well, like what he's offering. What the company is. That's what, like, kind of got it off the ground, right? Got it going, and now it's just having a good product and making sure it's delivering and meeting needs. And like I said earlier, finding.
Yeah, I think this is a key point that you made there. And again, there'll be people watching this because we talk about this quite a lot. Is you don't want to be the best kept secret. You can have the best product, the best service. You can really service that pain
Mhm.
or that need that's out there. But if you're not doing things like going out there and speaking, and you're not doing podcasts, and you're not doing webinars, you're not sharing your mission and your voice, you effectively become the best kept secret. Or at worst, you're in the pool of competing in the sea of sameness like everybody else.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you've heard this, but no one has this original idea typically that no one's ever thought of. It's just most people don't execute, right? They just or they haven't been heard of. But I mean, we know, like for Routermites, we know there's people that have already done this similarly. Like CRMs for service-based companies, there's plenty of them.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't compete. You just have to find a way to do certain things better, and listen to your customers and see, and also have a vision, right? Like, we do have the luxury of one of the founders being someone who uses the software a lot. So he firsthand will feel pain and see needs. Um, that others may not. That if you're not really using it. So
Exactly. Yeah, no, I've come across plenty of founders who have come with a great idea, and those who've listened before and those who know me, I always use this term, the field of dreams mentality. This is so cool. If I just build it, they'll come flooding to me, but they don't actually use it themselves. They just think this is a great thing to take to market without filling the necessary needs. Yet those I see that are really, really successful are those founders, like you said, who have saw a gap in the market. They were personally affected by it and thought there must be a better way of doing it. And that's the key thing. It's a better way than the others are currently doing.
Yeah, yeah, you just can't. That goes back to what I was saying before. You just can't fill the feature checkbox and say, oh well, they do that, let's do that. There's no reason to switch. It's kind of, you're very replaceable like that.
Yeah,
My product
exactly.
does the same thing as
And
your
easily
product.
forgotten.
Easily
This is the key
forgotten.
thing. You're easily forgotten as well, right? If you're replaceable and easily forgotten. So talking about moving forward then, having a vision, having a plan. Let's talk scale. What needs to happen in the sort of next 12 to 24 months for you to feel like you've hit a really good next growth milestone?
Slow churn down, and
Yeah.
continue just converting. So we do a trial based for most of all the subscriptions are trial based. So basically, keeping everyone who comes and tries
Yeah.
it. If we could do that, our growth will be hitting targets and be super happy. So a lot of challenges with that, right? You have to make sure your product's really good, because if it's self service, um, you can't hold every customer's hand, right? And that's something I'll tell you I've seen with other products and even talked to some other companies before about, and that typically happens with a organically grown, companies like we're talking about. Is it really requires a lot of hands-on for the customer to be successful. And
Yeah.
typically the owners or the co-founders are the people who hold those hands. And eventually you can't hold everyone's hand.
So what does one do? Because you're absolutely right, Rick. There's we get to talk to and work with a lot of SaaS founders, and churn is one of those things which, if some are paying a lot of attention to, some need to pay more attention to in their churn. But one of those things is helping, like you said, to use the words that you just used, is helping the client succeed. It's
Mhm.
not just a case of here's a trial, try it out, see if it works for you, continue, because that's
Right.
when you'll start. Because if they don't know how to use it, they'll suddenly realize we're not using it to the best of our ability. So why are we having it? And then they leave. So what are you guys doing to hold that hand, as it were? You say you can't hold everybody's hand, but
Yeah.
what kind of stuff are you actually doing to stop that churn, or at least reverse the churn a little bit?
Yeah, so onboardings, offer free onboardings, offer a lot of training, documentation, but ultimately just making the product intuitive to use. I mean, that's the real answer for anybody. um, but if you have a advanced, sophisticated system that can do a lot and has a lot of power, sometimes that's easier said than done. Apple's kind of the king of that, right? Making something pretty complex super simple. It's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. That's ultimately the goal. The goal is that someone comes into your product and it makes perfect sense. It's just
Yeah.
right in front of their
This
face.
feels natural to them. It
Yes.
just feels
Oh, okay.
absolutely
I
natural.
see. I see. That, I mean, if you want to give some advice to anyone, it's like that. If you can make your customer perceive the value immediately, you won.
Yeah. I think like you said, Apple's a great way. That from their phone to their watch to the computers to the laptops, everything's the same. Everything feels so familiar, irrespective of which one you're using.
And you know what's interesting about that? I'm a big fan of UX and user experience and that kind of stuff. And I've had some good mentors in the past who taught me a lot about it. And you know, there's been plenty of times I've used my Apple device along over the years where I wasn't happy about it at first. I didn't like what they had introduced or how their approach was for certain things. But to me, that goes back to their vision of knowing better than I knew of what I
Mhm.
needed. And they were like, no, this is the right way. Let's do this. And then, a few days later or however long it takes, you can't imagine doing it any other way. And so that's, they could listen to customers who are like, no, I don't want that. I don't like that. Or they could, look in the future and go, this is what we need to be doing.
Yeah, I like what you just said, that they knew better. It's a nice way of looking at it, because we've all at some point. I'm an Apple. I suppose, yeah, I have everything an Apple. So and I try and get my wife to use an Apple. She's not. Try to convert her over to it, but I do recall, like you did, when it was first. Well, why is they doing it this way? This feels uncomfortable. Why
Mhm.
has it got to be so restrictive? Why are they dominating it, doing it this way? It's so much easier doing it other way. But I love what you said there, Rick, about, well, perhaps they knew more than we did. Perhaps they saw a much, much bigger vision of where it is. And we just see it's so comfortable now. It is so comfortable. Everything's
Yeah.
so
And,
much
and
easier.
yeah. And if you can deliver your product or whatever your business offering is, it doesn't have to be software. If if the customer perceives the value right away, then you're no longer competing with your competitor with price, because that's where it ends up when you're side by side. It's like, oh, well, which one's cheaper then? And
Yeah.
that's not where you want to be with anything
Yeah.
you offer. You want to have value.
Yeah. And value doesn't have to be complicated. We see people trying to overcomplicate things just to create value. And actually then that diminishes it because now it's too complicated to use. It doesn't feel like it flows properly, so you can be expensive and simple, and give great value.
How many times have you bought anything that you love and you're like, I can't believe I didn't think of that?
Exactly.
It'll be the
Exactly.
simplest thing, but yeah, someone finally thought about it. I was like, oh yeah, people will love it.
Yeah, they're going to love it. They're going to love it. Well, listen, Rick, I've got one last loaded question for you. It's a question I ask all my guests at the end, or versions of the question. If you could give one takeaway from today's interview, from today's podcast episode, to a founder who is just waking up every morning and hitting that glass ceiling and just doesn't know what to do to break through it, stop the reverse, what would that one piece of advice be?
Hire really good people. Like early on, hire really, they'll be expensive, but hire experienced, good people that fit your culture as well. And when I say hire good people, hire people that fit your culture. Be slow on that. I've said hire earlier quickly, but like be slow on that decision, the person that you want. But hire good people early in those key positions, and it'll make things so much smoother.
Oh, well, I think that's a great piece of advice to end this episode on. Rick, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on today, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people will be taking lots of little insights and nuggets from you today.
Awesome, Jordan. Thanks for having me.
Not at all. So if people want to get hold of you or potentially check with or connect with, what's the best way of doing that?
Just hit me on LinkedIn, first name, last name, Rick Schott. You'll be able to find me. Yeah, reach out.
Fantastic. I'll make sure that link is in the show notes so you can just click straight through to it and make it nice and easy for both you and them. So again, thank you very much, Rick, for joining us. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for sharing another episode of the Growth Focus podcast. And as per normal, you know by now, please make sure you like it and share it and drop comments in anything you picked up from Rick today that you found that was exciting for you, interesting for you, that could potentially help you grow. But please make sure you share these episodes so that everybody can grow as well. So until next time, keep working hard, but more importantly, keep profitable. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.